degenerative hearing loss, but we didn't know it definitively until he was about 2. In fact, initially, we didn't know he had any hearing loss at all. We were skeptical, and that belief was sort of perpetuated by his caregivers when he was doing his initial hearing tests.
So around 2 years old,
Yes.
he had a sedated hearing test performed, and it was determined that he had the degenerative hearing loss. At the time, it was only...
It was moderate in his left and normal in his right.
Correct. And we recently just found out that it's moderate to severe in his right and severe in his left. So it is, it is decreasing very rapidly at this point. We decided to go with a sign-supported speech approach to supplement spoken language, with spoken language still being the end goal. Also at the time, we didn't know that he had childhood apraxia of speech. So we've been told that people can understand about 5% of what it is he's trying to say. So having sign language as basically, I would say, his primary language.
To be understood by others, yes.
Has been crucial.
It's really his most useful communication tool. It's his speech with other people right now, especially outside of the family. And we started to learn sign language ourselves and started to implement that in our daily routines and our life. And initially his uptake was a little slow, but recently, it's really since the age of 3, it's exploded. And he loves learning now.
He does. He gets so excited when someone signs to him, and he can talk with his peers if he's around them using sign, and he can speak with us. It's really alleviated a lot of frustrations that I think everyone experienced, him and ourselves in communicating. And it's really been a great avenue to, build a relationship with our son that we weren't really able to at first. Around the same time of his hearing diagnosis, we were also told that he has autism. So that adds another layer of difficulty for communicating and engaging and interacting with people.
We're currently using sign-supported speech, but we are exploring the opportunity to get into bimodal bilingual because we're anticipating he'll have continued hearing loss. And we want to be well positioned if that happens, both as a family and for him.
We meet with a teacher of the deaf every week, and we spend an hour with her learning about, learning sign language, learning about deaf culture, learning about any of the hearing devices that he's using. Currently, he's using a bone-anchored hearing aid. That will now change because of his latest hearing test results. But we just try and get as much as we can out of every session.
And we explore on our own as well, independently. And we use sign language even when Evan's not around between the two of us, because we really have incorporated it into our lives. It's become a part of our lives.
It has, yes. Once you incorporate it in your lives and you learn it and you just utilize it every day and you're consistent, it becomes, second nature to just communicate in that way. And that's been, I think, key to the whole process and to teaching him.
And the fun element of it is really critical as well. I mean, we enjoy doing this. We've had a great time with Kathy. She's just such a wonderful teacher in person, and we've made sure that Evan has enjoyed his experience. It's very much our nature to be like, we're going to learn sign language and we're going to do it 8 hours a day, and we're going to start now. And we've resisted that temptation, and it's made the experience better, I think, for everybody.
I think given sign-supported speech is most definitely easier than some of the other methods that some people need to use, but it's a process, and everyone learns differently. I mean, even through the two of us, he learns better in some ways than I do, as far as retaining all of the information. But it's really, we've learned that it's a process, and it's going to take time.
I don't think it's any more difficult than any other language. It's just different, and that difference does make it interesting. It's not like learning French. So that is an interesting element. And it is visually beautiful. A really eloquent speaker moves her hands in a very beautiful way, and that's very elegant and interesting.
It has changed our relationship with him and with each other as a family. And moving forward, obviously, being able to sit here and have a conversation like you and I are having right now would be, wonderful. That's what you think of. But with that not looking like a possibility for him, for many, as you said, there's multiple reasons for that. We just, moving forward, want him to find ways to communicate, to still be the silly, happy little boy that he is, and enjoy life and be a good person.
We have 2 boys. Benjamin is 5 years old and Lucas is 2. Lucas is the one with hearing aids. He has bilateral hearing loss. The doctors say that it's classified as moderate to severe.
Yep.
He's had hearing aids since he was 1 year old, roughly. So he's been wearing hearing aids for about a year. As far as a little bit of history in our family, my parents are both fully deaf. I grew up in a deaf household, signing and speaking at the same time. My brother and sister are both hearing, so 3 hearing kids with 2 deaf parents. There was a lot of sign language and speech in my household.
So we decided to go with kind of a manually coded English approach with Lucas because we have Jason's sign language experience. He's completely fluent in sign, so it made sense for us to take the approach of signing and speaking at the same time, so he had access to multiple forms of communication. We were already doing that with our older son so that he could speak with his grandparents through sign when we see them. So for us, we were kind of just naturally doing that approach. So for us, it was easy to already implement something that we knew. I don't have as much access with sign language, so I'm kind of learning sign as we go. I know single words and we kind of put them together for Lucas, so I'm learning just alongside of him. But it made the most sense for us to take that approach because we already had the resources that we needed to implement 2 forms of communication.
Yeah, we were big advocates for signing as babies, so it was more of an extension of that into what we do now. We've always been speaking and signing and integrating both at the same time, so doing that with Lucas is pretty natural to us.
Yeah, he has hearing aids that he's used for a year now. The beginning was rather difficult to get him to keep his hearing aids in. As a 1-year-old, it's really, really hard to get them to keep them in all the time. You try every technique you can to make sure they stay in as long as possible during the day. I think back then we were getting really frustrated early on trying to keep the hearing aids in, and you look back now and it's just part of our day-to-day. He wakes up and he puts them in before we get changed for the day and get dressed and out of our pajamas, and then at the end of the night he takes them out after we do bedtime stories and he goes to bed. So before that it was 10, 20, 30 times a day they were coming in and out, and it can be really frustrating, and it was a struggle that we had to overcome for a while, but the hearing aids are definitely making a significant difference in his hearing. His speech is changing, which is amazing to see at this point.
At first, when we were initially using his hearing aids, we were a little bit skeptical because we thought that he could hear more than the doctors were telling us. He would respond when we would ask him questions, and he would hear noises that we didn't think he should be able to hear. So hearing aids weren't as much of a priority at first. We didn't think that necessarily he needed them as much as the folks told us that he did. But since we've been much more diligent about him wearing them, and since he's become accustomed to wearing them all day, we've seen his speech kind of blow up, using 2 and 3 and 4 word sentences, and his words are becoming more clear since he's been wearing the hearing aids. His vowels and consonants are much more distinguishable. We didn't think that he needed them, but it's clear that he obviously did. And his speech is one of the first things that we noticed that with.
Yeah, I would say some of his words that are developing over time now. So there are things that he used to to pronounce that we would understand what he was saying, but any person on the street, kind of like any other toddler, you just wouldn't be able to know unless it was a parent or someone that was around them all the time. But now there are words that are evolving and changing, and the only reason is because he's wearing the hearing aids. If he wasn't wearing them as regularly as he is now and as he should be, then I don't think his speech would be developing as much as it is. I think we use sign a lot of times when he can't communicate, if there's words that he just can't say, and try as he may, if he thinks that we're understanding what he's saying, we just can't. So there are times where he gravitates towards sign to really communicate something in a moment of frustration. So that support for himself to be able to communicate with us in a time that he just can't get the words out has been a blessing as well, because at the end of the day, we kind of put the words and the signs together to help us get the message across to each other.
We kind of let him drive it because he picks up certain words quicker than he does on the signs, and vice versa. You know, he might sign something more than he says the word. Grammy is an example where he'll sign it and not say the word at all vocally. So we kind of pick that up, and we recognize which words he prefers to sign and which words he prefers to speak, and try to expand upon that. We try to work on making sure that he knows how to sign and speak the other word as well. You know, if he always signs the word orange, we want to make sure that he can say the word orange as well. But at first, I'm just grateful that he knows how to communicate that word to begin with. Having access to both languages is really reassuring that regardless of whether it's spoken or sign, he can still communicate. And if we need to work on picking the other one up or balancing those scales a little bit, then I can do that later, and just be grateful to know that he can still communicate right now.